Okay, so we're looking at UVs and how we're going to go about doing them inside of Maya. So one of the first things you could do is you could try automatic mapping. So if I'm in object mode, I can go to UV and then go automatic. So automatic mapping is going to try to give us all the pieces as best it can. So if I then go to UV editor, this is what it gives me. So it's separated the wings, the top and bottom of the wings, it's separated the front of the ship, the back of the ship, pretty much everything. It's taken it all apart and made it individual pieces. That's not necessarily ideal for how we want to texture the ship. So I'm going to go ahead and actually UV this manually by using planar mapping. So I'm going to go ahead and just start selecting the faces that I want to map. And I'll leave the tail by itself. So I'm getting the top and bottom of the ship. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to UV. I'm going to go to planar, but I'm going to go to the options for planar because I need to make sure to pick the right axis. So we're going to pick the y-axis, and I'm going to hit project. So now you can see in my UV editor, it gives me this piece right here. And the other piece has disappeared because they're now UV'd like this, which is exactly what I want to do. So I have my top and bottom connected to each other. Well, not really connected to each other, but they're on top of each other, so they're going to share the same texture. And then these are all the rest of my pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and just move these out of the way and then keep UVing. So that way I have all the pieces here. So I'm going to move these back. So the more space you take up in this little square is the more detail you can put on those pieces. So I'm going to make that about that big. Go ahead and move it right there. And then we'll go back and planar map the rest of it. So I'm going to get the tail now. So we're going to go ahead and planar map that on X, it looks like. So UV, planar, options, X, project. Go back to our UV editor, see what it did. So there's the tail. And obviously that's way too big. We don't need that much detail on the tail. So I'm going to go ahead and make that smaller. Put it right there. I'm going to put a logo on that, so I do want it to be just a little bit bigger. There we go. And now I'll come back in here and I will get the top of the tail. Actually, I'll go ahead and get the front and back of the tail. So we're going to project on Z. So UV, planar, projection on Z. And we're going to hit project. And again, we're going to come back into our UV editor to see what it did. And it just made those squares, which is kind of exactly what I expected it to do. And we can make them nice and small so they line up. There we go. Okay, and now of course the top. That's just going to be a planar map. And I'm probably just going to stick that on top of the other one. But I can't planar map it to be planar mapped like on X or Z. It still has to be planar mapped correctly. That way it's not a stretch texture. So I just went ahead and did the projection mapped. There it is. It's just a nice square. I'm going to go ahead and squish it down and just put it right on top of the other one. That way they can share the same texture. There we go. Okay, so now I'm just going to start working with these and take these over. Now we could planar project the rest of this object, but I don't necessarily think we need to. Well, I can try doing the front real fast, so I'll do the front. So I'm going to select all of that because that works pretty well, and I'm going to go ahead and do a UV and an automatic on those guys. UV editor, let's see what it did. No, I don't like what that did at all. Look at that, it like made this weird angle here. So that's not going to work for us, so we're going to have to go and manually do those. But for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and leave them. Well, we'll go ahead and get the sides. Let's see. So there we go. There's the side. So we're going to planar project on X. X project. Okay, let's go see what it did. That's what it did. Perfect. Scale it down. So this is going to be the front, the cockpit of the spaceship. So we'll kind of give it a little bit more room. There we go. And then of course we can do shortly after we can go ahead and get the front of it, or the actual glasses I should say. And this piece, those should work. Now this I want to be separate from the bottom because this is going to be glass, so we don't want them to be planar map the same. So I'll do this one on Y, project, UV editor, let's see what it did. Okay, it just made them both cylinder or squares, which is kind of what it normally does. So I'll just have to figure out which one's glass. Let's see if I select that. Is that the glass? Yep, that's the glass. Okay, perfect. So that one's the glass. What I could do is I could grab these and do this. And then here's the other side, right? But we really want them to be the same texture, so I don't want to mirror them or anything. I was going to mirror it so you could see how it all goes together, but really that would mess up the texture a bit. So we'll just leave it like that. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and take this out so we can actually UV it. This could be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to have some more detail, so I'm going to move it right here. This is the tail. We'll put the tail right here. This is the cockpit. Put it right there. Okay, so now I need to take this out. So we haven't done the rest of the ship, and that's fine. But for this example, we'll just go ahead and get through this. So I'm going to go to Image, and I'm going to go to UV Snapshot. So it's a 2048 by 2048 image, which is a good size. I'm going to browse. I'm going to put that on my desktop for now. I'm just going to call this ship_UV. Save, and I would like this to be a JPEG. An IFF isn't really usable. So I'll use a JPEG, and I will apply and close. Select a polygon. Well, I have this guy. There it goes. Okay, I just had the object mode select the ship. Okay, so let's go to Photoshop. So we're going to go to Photoshop, and this is where we're actually going to do all the texturing work on our ship here, or on our UVs, and bring that back into Maya. Okay, so we're just going to create new, we're going to file, open, it's on my computer, it's on my desktop. What do we call it? Ship UV, there we go. Open, there it is right there, perfect. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is unlock that background. I'm going to hit Control A and then Control I to invert that. And then I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to put this layer under my main layer. I'm going to drop the opacity of the main layer to about 50% so I can still see the lines. And then I'm going to go ahead and lock that layer. That way I can't work on it anymore. Okay, so now I can go ahead and work on this bottom layer and actually doing all my detail. So I already grabbed a couple of pictures that I wanted to use. So I already grabbed a metal picture and I grabbed the Space Force logo right there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use the clone stamp. So I'm going to hold Alt, click there, come back in here, and just start painting. So that's going to be nice and textured. Same with the side here. Okay, now this I want to be just a blue color. For like the glass. And coloring outside the lines doesn't matter, as long as you're not coloring into another set of lines or into another outline. So I'm just coloring into this. It looks fine. Now I'm going to clone stamp again. There we go. Okay, so once I've done that, I can go ahead and turn off this. So I didn't get my logos yet. Hold on. Let's go ahead and get the logos on here. Actually, we're just going to copy and paste them. Alright, will work. That's one. Then I'm just going to duplicate this layer. That's two. And that should work. Okay. So what I can do is I can turn off my main layer. So this is going to be what's happening. And I'm going to go ahead and save this and bring it back into Maya. So I'll do a file, save as. This will be a JPEG. And we're going to call it ship diffuse. High quality. Okay. Then I can come back in here. And I'll go ahead and make my texture. So window, rendering editors, Hypershade. I'll make a new blend material because blend's shiny. I'll do a color. I'm going to do a file. And my file, I will choose, it's on my desktop, ship diffuse, open. I'm just going to simply drag and drop this onto my ship. I'm going to turn on hardware texturing, and there it is. So obviously I didn't pick a very great metal texture. I wanted to pick a much more like paneled texture and really take my time and spray painting it. But this is just a quick example video so you guys could see how it looked. And that's about how it looks. So pretty easy. That's the UVing system. Now, everywhere that I didn't bother UVing, it's just randomly grabbing the pictures. Now you can see we have a problem since I kept the top and bottom on top of each other. This is just mirrored on the bottom, so it's backwards, right? So that's one thing that we'd have to be very, very careful of if we were going to use logos, and we need to make sure to actually separate the bottom. But that's it. That's all there is to UVing.